Now, why was that part of your original intention? Why the choice to play slower, heavier music?
Well, prior to Culted, I had always been in death or thrash or grind or even black metal oriented bands. So not a lot of those bands. Speed was not a requirement, but definitely was a focus. Over the years, while I was in those bands, I became enraptured with bands that had a more of a wall of sound approach to their music. Such as, like, if you want to like drop a few names, like Neurosis, Godflesh, or Swans. Those are bands that, more so Swans and Neurosis, they really changed my overall interpretation of what music or rock and roll or music as entertainment was or is or should or should not be, and the way that they constructed or they created sound. I found it fascinating. I found their approach to the art totally transformative, and their overall songwriting, their lyrics, their artistic, just the way they presented themselves. It was just, they were artists that were completely lived their art, and I just found that to be the most consuming and one of the most transformative periods of my life was coming across those two artists.
Can you expand on that a little bit? When you say that bands like Neurosis and Swans live their art, what do you mean?
Well, it's this idea that you're not just, it's not as music is not just as entertainment. I think I'd always, I think most of us, listen to music for enjoyment's sake. And I do enjoy listening to Swans and enjoy listening to Neurosis. But, there's a difference between me putting on a Priest record and just being like, kind of just enjoying the sonic quality of it and just kind of like, or even singing in my head along to it. And it's a very different experience. But these bands, such as Swans, Neurosis, they're not just writing music for music's sake. It's almost as if they're writing music because their lives, their souls depend on it. And to me, it was almost as if I could hear that pull that they had, or that searching or seeking quality that they were trying to transform not only the musical landscape that they were occupying, but also I don't know if it's metaphysical, but the psychological one, the existential one. And these bands, they lived the way they thought. They didn't just play rock and roll. This was something they did 24/7. If they weren't rehearsing, they were finding ways to further enhance their art, be it through the physical arts like painting or different sound treatments, or finding ways or even finding different people to associate with and collaborate with, even if not musically, but in I don't say in a friendly way, but in a way that they're always looking for ways to find others to push their own outlook on the arts.
I think I understand what you mean. When I first heard Neurosis, I was probably about 17 or 18 years old, and it struck me immediately like, this isn't music these aren't rock songs or metal songs about serial killers and war and stuff like that. Like, there's almost like a resonant frequency to Neurosis that's kind of terrifying, that you feel deep inside of you when you're listening to their music. And it's I don't know if moving is the way, but it kind of like, I don't know, like it resonates in a very different way than a typical metal band would, or even a typical doom metal band would.
Absolutely. There's this thing, right? There's this quality in certain artists that they're able to manifest something beyond the pale, right? Like and it's remarkable to witness, and it's inspiring. And like you said, Neurosis, I remember hearing them for the first time, and I was, like you said, you're used to lyrics that are graphic, be it death metal lyrics or like you're saying, serial killer stuff, and that was extreme. Those are extreme points of view and extreme lyrics. But I remember coming across, having somebody play through Silver and Blood for me when it came out, and and I'd never heard anything like it. It didn't like just even the physicality, the actual LP did not look like a typical metal record. It didn't have a graphic image. It has that I think it's almost a Buddha like image with the snakes, the medical or the DNA kind of snakes with blood coming from the eyes, and it's just this. It almost has not a religious, but it's going beyond what I'd ever seen in a metal record. But something about it, it was almost like the imagery itself was tapping into some primordial essence or something. It really it had a profound effect, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't figure out what it was about just looking at that. But I don't know. It's kind of it's part of that collective unconscious that people subscribe to. But it does something. And when I first heard the music, it was very non-linear. It starts off with almost a droning keyboard line, and then drums kind of fade in, and it gets this kind of drone sequence that the bass starts, and then the guitars start, and it takes forever for this wall of sound to crush down, and then the vocals kick in, and you just feel the weight of complete emotional anguish thrust upon you as the listener, as these vocals reek of complete inner turmoil. And they're some of the heaviest lyrics or vocals I've heard, and they weren't the traditional like growl or what I always kind of associated with extreme metal vocals. So yeah, to me that they tapped into a darkness that wasn't just kind of romanticized or for entertainment's sake or to be put on at a party. Like I can't imagine listening to Neurosis at a party. That would just I don't know, that just would be almost sacrilege.
So I take it that these qualities that you admire about Neurosis music is something that you try to create in Culted as well. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to say that we are trying to create anything like what they do. That's never been an intention to sound like someone or something, but their influence, their whatever they've done to me is undeniable. Whether there's some similarities in some of the music or even the way we the way that we were were willing to not create songs in a traditional structure. I mean, they kind of forged all of this ahead of so many other bands, and they made it possible. And yeah, I don't know, they are, I think, to be answer your question, they started it and allowed for many others, including Culted, to even have a format or have a forum to be heard on. And without them, we would not exist, maybe at all, but definitely not in the way that we wouldn't sound anything like we do now.
But also in terms of, like, I wouldn't describe Culted as party music either. It's there's a sense that Culted almost has this meditative quality to it that's not typical doom metal, or almost the hedonistic aspects of heavy music is kind of sanded away. Like, this is, like, I would describe Culted as a band that almost has more of a spiritual or kind of drony aspect to it as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's not by accident, right? That is definitely something that even in our earliest days, we weren't here to rock the party. I think we all kind of, even though we didn't talk about what kind of specifically what kind of sound we were going for, we definitely knew we wanted to have a very, I don't want to say serious mentality. It's not quite the word, but it's this very focused. This isn't party music. You wanted to really kind of rip the wounds open a bit and expose that pain. And don't be quick to put a Band-Aid on it, like let it ooze a bit, let it seep, and maybe lean in a bit and see what else is in there, because there's some value into some of that anguish, and to kind of find the reality within that mindset, and to not shy away, and to not romanticize it, not to get into, not to shy away from fantastical lyrics, and kind of not to be too what's the word, not to be too obvious lyrically, and also leave a lot of room for band members to interpret the lyrics as well that Daniel created. And I think that was really kind of happened from the beginning, and I think it's grown over the years as we've gotten to quote unquote know each other, and know who we are as people, as what our families are about, what we do for to maintain a living, and what we do to maintain our psychological health, and all of our artistic and philosophical endeavors become part of this entity that is culted, and we know what others are interested in. We don't have the exact same belief systems, or a belief system at all, but we're all interested in all these different facets of experience, and want to know more about it and each other. So, and I think we're, after, I don't even know, was it 10 years that we've been together or longer, we're really tapping into something what I find to be pretty interesting.
The album ends with a cover of Crush My Soul. As you mentioned, it was one of the first things that you recorded for the album. You mentioned Godflesh at the very beginning of our conversation. Would it be fair to say that they're a big influence on Culted?
I would think so. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. Yes.
And specific to that song, or maybe that era of Godflesh, would you say that it informed the direction of this album a little bit?
I don't know. I've never thought about it.
Because honestly, I wasn't that familiar with your band. Somebody, Season of Mist, sent me a promo, and as I was listening to it, I was like, this kind of sounds like a mix between Hellhammer and pre-Selfless Godflesh. And then the album ended with a cover of Crush My Soul, and I was like, all right, well, that wasn't a coincidence. It sounds like there's a lot of Godflesh in the DNA.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say something that we consciously, tried to bring to the forefront or anything, but their influence, like Neurosis or Swans, their influence is undeniable. Fuck, I mean, Godflesh. I mean, I first heard Godflesh when I was really super into or getting into different death metal bands, and I bought this compilation that Eric put out, the Grind Crusher tape, and it had like every death metal band that you should get. It was such a great comp. But within those songs was Street Cleaner. I think I'm pretty sure it was the song Street Cleaner was on there, and it was as heavy as the death metal on that comp, but it didn't sound exactly like death metal. I didn't realize at the time, but it had drum machines, and things that came to recognize later, like distortion on the vocals, and this kind of bass that was up front in the mix, distorted too, and it had this very, I don't know, clinical is not the right word, but mechanical feel to it, and and dark as fuck. Like I don't know if it's got. I think that's got the song with the sample at the beginning. That's just it just sets a tone that, oh man, getting shivers thinking about that. Yeah, so they would have been one of those first bands to like that, where I was into heavy, death metal, and they might have been that one of the first bands to show me that there was another heavy out there that is just as heavy as death metal, but from a different vantage point.
And you had a guest musician on the Godflesh cover, right?
Yeah, Jay Gammett from Crowhurst. Yeah, he's I don't know how I came into contact with him. I mean, that's probably Facebook or Instagram or something, and just I don't even know why. But we started, messaging. I don't know if I was being complimentary to his band or he was to mine or whatever it was. And, some kind of dialogue was struck up. And at some point he was working on some Dragged Into Sunlight stuff. And I kind of joked with him, I guess, because he'd done a few remix or added some stuff. And I kind of joked, well, now you won't have time to work with us. And he kind of wrote right back, like a minute later, he's like, dude, I'll drop everything to work with you guys. And I'm like, fuck, that's pretty cool, man. And so, initially we thought we would do a ton of work together on this record. It didn't turn out that way. For whatever reason, we just decided we were going to focus on the Crush My Soul stuff. So he just added some, textures and stuff. And I think it worked out really well. And some of the stuff he did was very subliminal. And I think it is a really nice treatment to go along with what we did.
I mean, between Jay from Crowhurst and Daniel, how much noise is too much noise for Culted?
I don't know if there can ever be too much noise. Yeah, I mean, noise, the right kind of noise at the right time is just the right amount. And that being said, so to answer your question, there can be the wrong kind of noise, right? Where it's superfluous. I don't even know how to pronounce right now. It's too late. Yeah, it can just be redundant or not necessary. And you can make that argument for the noise that's on our record. But as far as we're concerned, all of it is necessary, and it only enhances the sound experience. So none of that can be too much.
Are you guys based in Winnipeg?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Winnipeg, because all I know about that town is Kids in the Hall, and and the movie My Winnipeg. That I don't know if it's Guy Madden or Guy Madden.
Guy Madden. Yeah, he's from here, and he's yeah. I mean, if you watch My Winnipeg, then you've been to Winnipeg now. No, it's not quite as surreal or as trippy as that. Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess an argument could be made. It's a pretty strange place. It's a weird. I don't know. It's a lot of people complain about the city, but I don't know. It's more reasonable cost of housing or living here than most other places in Canada. Yeah, like it's cold in the winter and it's bloody hot in summer. Yeah, and most of our year is winter, unfortunately. So, a case could be made. Yeah, you're living, in kind of cold climate most of the time. It's flat, it's prairie country, and we struggle with the same things that most places have. A lot of socioeconomic hardship, racism. So it's all here. And was it? What's that guy's name? I'm trying to think of the noise artist from here, but he had what the fuck is his name? I'll think of it as soon as we're done this, but he had a single he put out called Winnipeg is a Frozen Shithole. It's like, yeah, kind of is. And, he lives here. I had it there. Oh, Venetian Snares. Yeah, he's from here. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of funny. We have this kind of I don't know what it is, self-flagellation isn't the right word, but, but I mean, a lot of people, it takes a certain kind of person to be from here. I don't know if you ever heard of Propaganda, but they're from here as well. And their first bass player, John, he had a band called The Weaker Thans, and they had a song all about, Winnipeg too. So, when there's something about this city that, it has a crazy, amazing, interesting artistic scene. And I think that has a lot to do with the grit of the city and our isolation. We didn't, for decades, we didn't have major artists touring through here. We were really left out to our own devices to kind of interpret the sounds that we heard from other cities and scenes and tried to create our own. But, nobody wanted to be a part of a scene. Everybody wanted their own sound. So which, you had your punk, your thrash, your grind, your death metal. And only recently, we've had death and, we've had death metal for decades, but there's only like a couple bands in each of those genres. And only in the last 15 years have, we've seen, a lot of bands come up, because when we started doing this stuff, or this is for the last 10 years, but when we started this stuff 25, now years ago or more, there were just a handful of bands, and each one was in a different genre, and it's a pretty cool scene. And each one of them took, we didn't get, a lot of them didn't get recognized, and it's a shame, because some of the stuff that came out of this city is world class and has been influential on us. So yeah, I don't know if that gives you a roundabout idea of this city, but yeah, come here if you dare.
I mean, I think typically a lot of like the great metal and punk scenes spring up from kind of harsh industrial cities. Thinking of like the German thrash scene, which came from that Rhine area where everything was like working class and very industrial, or even, I don't know. I'm spacing right now.
Well, what I'm thinking of too. Then when you put it like that, it's like you think of like Birmingham or like Black Sabbath and
Yeah, exactly.
And like Joy Division, those kind of. Like those bands that come from gray landscapes. And there's a lot to be. There's a definitely there's a parallel to be made under certain interpretation. So, yeah.